All right, Get Better Everyday podcast. I've got my buddy Doug Reynolds on today. I'm excited to talk all things real estate. Usually on YouTube, when you hear somebody talking about real estate, it's somebody who's not actually involved in real estate. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain, talk about real estate from someone who's closed 500 transactions, from someone who's actively involved in real estate on the day-to-day. Thanks for joining me, Doug.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to be here.
Yeah, for sure. I love having these conversations because I think it's valuable for the average person to just hear it, whether you're a buyer, whether you're a seller, whether you're a fellow agent, loan officer, real life stories from real life professionals that are doing this stuff on a daily basis. Non-scripted, just conversation. I'd like to start with what kind of feel you get. People hear a bunch of different things. You know, the market's crashing. Like the latest thing in mortgages that like all these adjustable rate mortgages are going to turn on people, which is a joke. But what are you hearing from clients specifically as far as their concerns about the current state of the market, where the market is heading? And then if you want to tell, me and the audience what your thoughts are.
Yeah, so I think it's a case by case thing. I mean, it's interesting. I think buyers sort of generally think one thing and sellers kind of maybe think something else. And, this answer is really only valid for kind of today that we're talking. And so right now, I think sellers are kind of feeling like they can just sort of list a house almost for any price and be able to get more than what the comps are saying, or not have to do a whole lot of work on their property or something. And the disconnect there is the buyers, they're pretty picky right now, I would say. And so those sellers that either their agent just isn't willing to have difficult conversations with them and really explain that, yes, there's not a lot of inventory right now, but the buyers that are there, they're very particular about properties right now. So buyers, they're out there, they're looking, they understand they've got to step up and be strong and make a strong offer because they might be competing, but it's only particular houses that really happens with. You might have two homes in one neighborhood. One comes on the market at $699 and the sellers did a bunch of stuff. They did painting. They did a few little updates and stuff. They maybe staged it or something. And it might have 4 offers and sell for $740 within a couple of days. And you could have another house around the corner, that was listed right around that, 700 or something. And it might sit for 3 or 4 or 5 weeks with no offers because they didn't do the little details to really wow the buyers there. The photos didn't look real great, or the painting was a little dingy, or they didn't take care of the yard before the showings, or, something like that. And it's that small difference right now in the market that really makes a difference between not only selling, but selling for top dollar.
I think selling fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I'm seeing the exact same thing. And it's interesting for me, my perspective as a mortgage broker, I get to talk to a bunch of agents in a bunch of different neighborhoods with honestly a bunch of different perspectives. But I agree with you wholeheartedly that a lot of times to the outsider, it might make no sense. You're looking at it, you're like, this doesn't make any sense. This sold within 2 days for $740. This one's been sitting on the market for 60 days. Like, what gives? And to your point, like the professional eye can see these upgrades mattered. These pictures mattered. What, price they went on at mattered. And so in your professional opinion, what can sellers do besides listen to the advice of the professional they hired, to make sure that they aren't the one that sits on the market for 45 days, 60 days and start, panicking and having a price drop?
Yeah. So I think it's first important to maybe point out via a story or something and share I'm working with some buyers right now, and this is what's happening. So typically sellers, before I meet with them, they also have gone online themselves. And so they've kind of looked at properties themselves. They usually have kind of rose-colored glasses. They think for whatever reason, my kid took a bath, in this bathtub, and so my house is worth more for whatever reason. Everyone's emotional and sentimental about their properties and thinks it's worth more. But maybe share about the buyers. From the buyer's perspective, right now I'm working with buyers and they're either ready to write a full price or over list price offer within the first 2 days coming on the market, or if they see that house has been on the market for 10, 11, 12 days, all of a sudden their mindset flipped 180 degrees. They basically are thinking, oh, they haven't sold yet. They don't have any offers. They must be desperate. Something must be wrong. And all of a sudden, it's like sharks with blood in the water. They're thinking, how low can I negotiate down on this seller? And so you really need to share with the sellers, you do not want to be in that second category of 2 weeks have gone by and you haven't sold anything yet. You haven't gotten an offer or sold yet. The buyer's mindsets are already flipping on you. And so you really want to make sure you package up your listing properly with the right combination of the list price, combined with the marketing that you're going to have, combined with the way that the property shows, because you want to be in that first category of, wow, when are you reviewing offers? What is the seller looking for? When do they want to close escrow? Do they need a rent back? All these things a buyer is going to ask if they really love the property and they want to write a strong offer on it.
Yeah. And that's crazy how that leverage swings so fast. Comes on market. There's a few buyers interested. The seller's got all the leverage and there's multiple offers competing against each other. It's either that where the seller's leverage, or you go into 2 weeks, 3 weeks on the market. All of a sudden the buyers are like, we've got leverage. You've got no offers. You have to entertain ours. Which, for right or wrong, I don't know the answer to this. So I'll just ask you, being on the market for 2 or 3 weeks, like historically, that's not crazy. I think that we've gotten used to such a tight inventory market and the crazy markets that we saw in 20 and 21 that like something on the market for 15 days sounds like an eternity. But, for Sacramento specific, what's average days on market in some of the markets you're looking at?
Well, let me answer your question this way is I've been doing this for 18 years. The world has changed a lot in the time. We all have a phone in our pocket now that is just buzzing and alerting us to anything and everything that we want to be notified of. And so every buyer, from the moment they wake up until they go to bed, they're in buyer searching mode. When they're going to the bathroom, they're looking for new listings. When they're probably should be doing work, they're looking for new listings. They have alerts set up on multiple platforms. Even though all of those platforms have all the same information, they're getting alerts from Redfin and from Zillow and from MetroList and from my personal website and everything, right? 18 years ago when I started in the business, technology wasn't there. And so a house, it took 2 weeks before the world even knew it was for sale. And so if a house had been on the market for 30 days, it wasn't that big of a deal because it had just gotten listed at that point in time. Nowadays, when I put a property in the MLS, within minutes, hundreds, if not thousands of potential buyers are immediately being notified of that property coming on the market. And they're immediately making split-second decisions as to whether they think it's priced right, looks good, whether they should go see it or not. And you have a moment in time to capture their attention. From that very first photo, whether they realize it or not, they are making decisions based on their feelings and their thoughts of looking at that photo and the price, and they're swiping and they're looking at the next photo and they're swiping and looking at the next photo. And then within a few seconds, they're deciding, do I want to call my agent, or these people, it's listed too high, this is ugly, it's a mess, whatever. And that's it.
Yeah.
You got that split second in time to either capture them, get showings, or miss the boat, and you're trying to catch their attention a second time, which is really challenging. So I think things have evolved to the point where the speed of real estate happens so fast because of the technology that we have involved with the market. And so we do have properties that will sit on the market for 70 or 80 or 90 days, and that changes the numbers on the average and stuff. So we're in the ballpark of, 15 to 20 days is kind of average for probably the majority of listings. A lot of them sell way faster than that. A lot of them sell longer than that, but that's going to be kind of the ballpark in a pretty quick and normal market that we have.
Yeah. I love that idea that you're talking about, because it's so true. In a digital world where things happen so fast, whether you're, a company trying to get somebody's attention to buy your product or anything, you've got seconds to, make a first impression, and they're going to stop their scrolling and look, or they're not. And like you said, real estate's no exception, right? And so, what's the best way to make a good first impression as a seller? What should people be talking about with their agent to make sure that their property is something that gets seen in a busy digital world?
Yeah. So, really, to me, it's probably to try to simplify it and water it down to kind of one or two basic things. It's going to be the price, the list price, and the very first photo. Um, I hire for my marketing, I hire professional photographers to come. They send the photos to me. And even then, I still fiddle with them. I change the order around of which photos first, second, third. I'll spend hours manipulating the order of the photos, or I just don't like that one of the bedroom. It's the wall looks weird, whatever, and I'll just delete it and not even include it. It's to me, it's better to have 35 really good photos instead of 50 photos that you got 15 that are kind of weird or off or something. And it just makes your feelings, you don't realize it, but as you're flipping through, you're going, oh, that's kind of weird. Like, and so that first photo and the list price are going to be the most important initial things. From there, if you've got the right formula there, it's now the rest of the photos from there, scrolling through. Then it's, the description of the property, making sure you're listing all the amenities of the house, whether it's, dual pane windows or a new heating and air conditioning or remodeled recently or those types of things. Those are coming second and third in line to kind of that price and that front photo. So a lot of times it's pretty silly when I see a property listed for 805 instead of, $799 or something, because so many people have their search parameters set up at every 50,000 or every 100,000 and below. And so by listing your house for $5,000 more, it's less than 1% we're talking about here. You're missing out on potentially thousands of buyers seeing that because they got their criteria set up at 800 and below.
Right.
And so it surprises me a lot of times when I see that agents aren't just willing to have a little bit of a challenging conversation with their sellers to go, hey, look, you're actually going to end up doing better in the long run by just barely coming down, because it's going to create more competition to then push it even farther than if we had started here to begin with. From a seller, you want to be having a couple of options to choose from on a few offers, it's not just always about price. There's so many terms within a contract, and an agent that knows how a contract works in real estate, they're going to be able to pick it apart and go, yes, even though this one's for $1,000 more, this offer is actually better because of this, this, and this. Their initial deposit is higher. Their contingency time frame is shorter. They're working with an actual legitimate lender rather than just abcgetalone.com or something. And so an agent is going to be able to pick that apart. And as a seller, if you've got 2 or 3 or 4 offers, you're going to be able to find the best of all those combinations of things to get to the finish line. Yes, for the most amount of money, but in the smoothest process possible as well, to get to ultimately selling the property.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. We talked a lot about sellers. I'm excited to talk about buyers because obviously as a mortgage broker, I'm on team buy side. And so you mentioned being in the business for 18 years, 500 plus transactions. You've been around a while. You've seen a few things. Things have changed. One thing that I'm curious about is you talked about technology. Sometimes people have too much information at their hands, so much that it's overwhelming, probably confuses them, and they're getting probably more bad information than good. So how do you, as somebody who's trying to guide somebody throughout this process, you've got the real estate agent, you've got the title company, you got the mortgage broker. I know I find it challenging to kind of take away all of the noise that they're hearing, family members, internet, everything, to help them walk through the home buying process, which is the biggest purchase of their life. A lot of times it's stressful. They've got their job to worry about. They've got family to worry about. They got all this outside distraction, and then they're going through this thing. It's a scary process for some, and I know that you do a great job at making it feel less scary, less stressful. What are some things you're doing specifically now? And then I'd love to hear too, like what's changed, right, with the technology and things you've implemented to kind of work alongside technology.
All right, let me make sure I answer all of your questions in there. Uh, so I got my degree in real estate. I should have got a degree in counseling or therapy or something as well too, because you're literally like a therapist throughout the whole process as well too. The emotional highs and lows, working with buyers, going through the process. And so I think I've learned over the years, there's a pretty specific pattern and rhythm to most people, what they experience. And so if I can give them an idea of what's to come next, they're able to handle that better, going, oh yeah, Doug told me this would feel this way, or I would kind of get sweaty palms and a little nervous once I got that home inspection report back, or oh yeah, like good thing Doug prepared me. There's a couple, there's $1,000 in inspection fees and stuff. I wasn't even thinking about that. He told me about that. So, so much of it is handling the buyer's expectations throughout the process. I think the agents that aren't able to handle the expectations of their clients end up with transactions that are falling apart. Every house is going to have problems and issues, but if you're able to navigate your buyer in a way that they're not caught off guard or surprised, they're able to think more clearly and be more rational and make a little bit better decisions throughout the process. It might be the best decision to ultimately walk away from a property or something. But if you're tied up in a bunch of emotions, you're not able to know whether that's the right decision or not. And so I will actually point out to my clients that, hey, you're going to hear Aunt Sally's going to be telling you all kinds of stuff. You're going to be doing this and that. What is going to be best for you is to get the right team around you that you can trust. Yes, there's great resources out there. And oh, by the way, here are some resources that I recommend. I recommend this particular blog for you to read through. Here is a link to my YouTube videos. Go back and watch the last few months so that you can get a feel for what has been happening in the market. I want you to do a little bit of homework to get yourself caught up to speed with what's happening right now, because what's going on right now wasn't what was happening 4 months ago or 8 months ago or last year. And so if you're running to CNN or Fox News or something, you're getting horribly bad information that has to do with kind of national stuff. It's got a slant on it from some angle or another. It's not the right resource to go to if you are specifically looking to buy a property right now in this moment in the Sacramento area. Here's where you want to go. And so I'll lead them to those resources, give them that information. Additionally, I'll sit down with them and kind of walk them through the whole process and go, hey, this is step 1. This is step 2. And it's kind of like trying to drink through a fire hose. I'll tell them, I'm going to give you a ton of information. You're not going to remember all this. So always just ask me, hey, can you remind me of this? Or I forgot about that or whatever. And then constantly I'm just reminding them as we go through, here's the next step. Here's what's going on. This is what you can expect next. And so when they're in those feelings and emotions, they're able to go, oh yeah, Doug told us that, this was the next thing happening. This is what it is. I think it's very important as a buyer's agent to have really good communication with the listing agent. That the listing agent's the one representing the seller. And so if you're in communication with each other, you are able to work as kind of a team to work through the problems that your individual client is having at that time. Hey, we were really caught off guard and surprised by this. We weren't expecting it, but this was a bit of a concern. The electrical over here, the seller probably isn't even aware of this, but look, can you please look at page 27 of the report? It's a concern to my client. They really would like to move forward with this property, but this is an issue. I've got an electrician. Why don't let's figure this out. Let's work together so that we can have success for your seller, but also get things squared away for my buyer so that we can, come to a successful, agreement for everyone or something.
Yeah.
There was a few other questions in there somewhere. Oh, maybe technology overload. Yeah, there's good resources out there. Okay, so how it's changed. When I first started in the business, I was the resource for my buyers. They had to come to me. They'd say, this is what I want. This much for a house, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,200 square feet, this size yard, this many garage, everything, blah, blah. And I had to go and I had to set up a search for them in the MLS, right? Well, now buyers have that available. And I think a lot of agents had a tough time letting go of that. They felt like, oh, I'm losing control. My client's just going and looking online at properties themselves. I learned to embrace that. I tell my buyers, I say, look, you have access to basically everything that's on the market right now. And so I'm not going to try to stop you because you're going to anyways.
Right.
Maybe I recommend this particular app or this one, maybe stay away from that one. And I have an app available to my buyers. And so we can actually message with each other within that. But essentially I'm telling them, you go and do your thing. You search. When you find something that looks good to you, you send it to me and I immediately jump on it. I see if there's any extra information, any reports. I'm going to talk to the agent. I'm going to find out when showings can be done. What's the seller status and situation? Do they have any offers? All that stuff, right? But as an agent now, I'm working more behind the scenes and trying to dig stuff up off market. I am collaborating or networking with other agents going, hey, I've got a buyer. They're looking in Sierra Oaks right now, and this is the type of property they're looking for. This is their price point. Do you have anything coming up? And a lot of times we can maybe find something that's not even on the market yet for a buyer that I have and show it to them, put a deal together, and they didn't have to compete with other buyers because it never got shown to the world that it was available. So I think letting the buyers do their search while they're going to the bathroom, while they're laying in bed at night, go for it. Send me what you like and I'll jump on it. But behind the scenes, I've got connections with hundreds of other agents, whether it's through my company or through networking through SAR, those types of things, or just agents I've done transactions with in the past and can try and find deals for my buyers that way as well.
Yeah, I've seen that as a trend, being on the mortgage side where somebody's like, hey, I was talking to a neighbor at a barbecue and they're moving out of state. We put this together. And so I know the feeling is that more stuff is getting put together off market. And I think that, ultimately the best agents I know are ones that are putting together win-wins. Seller wins, buyer wins, everybody's happy. Buyer's not competing at 6 offers. Sometimes the seller doesn't have to do some of the extra stuff, stage the house, take pictures and whatnot, and they put together a deal. Are you seeing more of those? I know in a super competitive 20 and 21, you were putting a lot of those deals together. Is that more prevalent now or less? What's the trend with off-market stuff in your opinion?
Yeah. So I'd say, first off, it's kind of the classic 80-20 rule. 20% of the agents do about 80% of the transactions.
Yeah.
And so as a buyer, if you're working with a middle to high level producing agent, they're going to be kind of in that group of in the know and having a lot of connections and being able to possibly dig something up that could be not available to everyone else. If you're working with, an agent that does 1 or 2 deals a year,
Aunt Sue,
she's just not going to have that network available to know where to find something in that way. And so I think it's important to make sure you've got an agent that you feel confident and comfortable with. They're going to bat for you. They're able to advise you properly, guide you in the right direction. So much of the work that I do has to do with conversations with other agents. When I'm working with a buyer, once we find that property that they want to write an offer on, that's really where my job begins. Yeah, I've been opening doors for them and finding, houses and driving around and stuff, but that's really where it begins. I really go to work on trying to find out every detail I can about the seller. Because if there's one little bit of information that I can get that no other agent's got, I can write the offer for my buyer in a certain way that specializes the offer just to what that seller is looking for. Whether it's they want to close quicker or slower, or they want to rent back, or something is important to them. There's some flowers that they want or something. We can write it into the contract that it's not included. They can take it with them or something. It was grandma's or whatever.
If you didn't ask, you wouldn't know. That's the thing that most agents don't understand, or most buyers don't understand, is like an agent that's digging and asking those questions knows that. If you don't ask, you don't know. And the amount of times I've heard from a listing agent, oh yeah, I only talked to like a half of the agents who sent offers. And of those, 4 out of 8 that I talked to, 1 or 2 of them asked great questions and wrote a specific offer. The other 2 kind of just said, hey, you got any offers yet? When are you reviewing? And fired something off. So
Yeah.
I'd love for you to, because I think this is valuable. It's probably valuable for agents. It's valuable for clients to understand this is what your agents should be doing. From my seat, it's incredibly frustrating. I won't try to hide it. Like, I'll be working with buyers that have put 7, 8 offers in. I'm reminding the agent, CC me on the offer. Let me be a part of it. Let me give the sell side some peace of mind that it's a local lender with a full file that can close quick. They forget to do that. If they forgot to do that, they probably forgot to call the list side and dig in. So I know that it's like the proof is in the pudding. I remember talking to you about a streak you had where you're batting 850 or 900 on getting offers accepted. And it was because the work was done on your side. You know how to talk. You know how to build rapport with the other side to put a deal together that works for everybody. So I guess from an agent perspective, tell us your thought and your take on that. And then from a buyer's perspective, what do they do to even know that that stuff's going on?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think you need to be a little more conscious as a buyer going into the process of who you're going to select as your agent, and dig a little deeper with those agents. Sometimes buyers, they will interview a few agents before they kind of choose who. I think that is maybe going to start happening a bit more as we move into the end of 2024 and 2025. I think more buyer interviews will probably be happening before they select what agent they're going to be working with. And so I would say, hey, ask if you're sitting with an agent, asking them about their process, say, hey, what are you going to do to try to get our offer accepted once we find a property that we want? And they should have some type of answers for you. For me, it's, well, I know the contract inside and out. So I know that there's not just price, there's 20, 30 more terms that I can manipulate in one way or another to sweeten the offer for the seller if we are competing with another buyer or multiple buyers. And so whether it's we're talking about, hey, we're going to, why don't we bump up your initial deposit a little bit higher? If they've got 2 offers at the same price, but one of them's got a much higher initial deposit, that seller is just going to immediately feel better about that offer right out of the gate. They just have more skin in the game in the process. So let's do that. Hey, I've got inspectors available. They're able to get on things quickly. Let's shorten our timeframes down, our contingency timeframes down a little bit. Or, hey, probably wise, let's just not ask for a home warranty right out of the gate. Sellers, for whatever reason, when they're looking at multiple offers and one of them's got a home warranty they're asking for, immediately they're just like, we're talking $500.
Yeah.
But emotionally, sellers just they get annoyed by those little things. And so you want to be checking all the boxes of how a seller is going to be appearing, how a seller is going to be feeling about your offer. It's not just the price, it's all those terms. Okay. The challenging part with that is getting their agent to understand. They might not be a very intelligent agent, or they might not know the differences to these things. And so when I'm presenting an offer, I'm going to send an email, and it's very structured. And hey, instead of having to look through 30 pages of here's the bullet points of my offer. And so within 20 seconds, they can already know all of the highlights with my offer here. This is our initial deposit. We're putting 20% down. We're going to close in 21 days. we're doing 50-50 on title and escrow and transfer taxes, those types of things. So it's not just writing a great offer and firing it off. It's calling the agent. It's digging for every bit of information you can get. A lot of times agents, they don't want to answer questions. And so you chit chat with them some more, make some jokes, and then you kind of circle back to that same question, but say it in a different way. Eventually you're going to wear them down. They're going to just crack and give you some more information usually. So once my client has an offer, a property that they like, that's really where all the hard work for me begins. And it's trying to get every bit of information so I could advise my buyer, this is everything I know. Let's structure it this way, this way, this way. Are you good with that? You know, those types of things. Then in the email, structuring it for the listing agent. I'm trying to make everything as easy as possible for the listing agent. So they're just like, wow, this guy is on top of it. And oh my gosh, he's going to do all the work here. He's going to make this easy for me. I want to advise my seller to take this offer because this guy is going to do everything. You know, I'm not going to have to work real hard here. And basically just promising the world to that listing agent so that they want our offer to be selected, and they're going to try to kind of lean their seller that direction if things are very close. And then including the lender in on it and going, hey, this lender does tons of transactions. They know what's going on. They're CC'd on this email. They're going to give you a call in 5 minutes. They're going to text you, you know. And then following up, once I send the email going, hey, did you get it? Do you have any questions? Is there anything that was of concern to you? Is there anything that we can do to maybe improve this in any way? We want to make sure that we get this for my client, you know? And this all is in an instance where a property just came on the market. It's priced very aggressively. It's got multiple offers, all those types of things.
Right.
You're not doing all of this if it's been on the market for a month and there's no other offers or anything. You're approaching it differently.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But I think, this is the more common theme because more often than not in a limited inventory environment, like that's what's happening. And I unfortunately get to be a part of a lot of missed shots with buyers where looking back, they're like, man, we really liked this property. You know, I don't know if it was too early in their home buying process to be able to give their agent the freedom to say what it takes. We want to do it to get this. But then it's second offer, third offer, fourth offer. Looking back on the first one, like, man, why didn't we write that one at 520? Why were we so dead set on this arbitrary number of 510s, our absolute max, when now we're offering 530 for a worse property 6 months later? So that's pure gold masterclass as far as getting offers. And that's what I love about this conversation is, you know, for the average consumer or for somebody listening, I think it might just be, oh, you know, I met an agent. They're really nice. Like they've lived in this neighborhood for 26 years and, you know, they go to the same church I do or whatever the case may be. Like an agent who's really nice and you get along with might not necessarily be the best person to represent you on the largest transaction. And that's hard for people. I get it, right? Like as a human being, you're just like, I want to be nice. I want to give this person a shot versus like, I want to hire the best lawyer because the best lawyer is going to get me the outcome that I want. And so, it's tough, but I get that question a lot of like, how do I choose an agent? I think you brought up a lot of good points. Like you should be asking the agent, like, what are you going to do to help me get offers accepted? As a buyer, limited inventory environment, like I don't think there's anything more important for a buyer. Cause like you said, there's technology available. You can see all the houses. Seeing the houses isn't a thing. Relationships, negotiation skills, being able to write clean offers. That's that. I wanted to ask you, because we've talked about the right way to do it. What are the biggest mistakes? And this can be buyer, seller, anybody. What are the biggest mistakes you've seen or are seeing? Feel free to share a story from 18 years. I know you've seen some things go sideways.
Yeah. So circling back to a moment ago, I mean, really, if you're writing your fifth or sixth or seventh offer and you haven't gotten anything accepted, something's wrong. You should not be. Sometimes people will come to me and they almost have this thought of, well, it's going to take 4 or 5 before we get one. I was like, that's a weird way to look at this. I don't know who you were talking to or why someone told you that, but you clearly had a conversation with someone that was not having success with their agent. In 2021, 2022, when the market was just crazy, I went back and I think I averaged maybe 1.2 offers for all of my buyers during that time.
Wow.
And that was like over 30 buyers or something, I want to win. You need to have an agent that wants to win. I'm annoyed and ticked off if my client did not get their offer accepted.
I've seen that.
You shouldn't be going into the process thinking, well, it's our first one. Oh, and like it's some practice thing or something. It's like, no, this is serious. If you want this house, you need to be writing a legit offer. Of course, if it's been on the market for 3 months or something, yeah, you need to be at least interested in it. You're not just writing offers for fun or for practice or anything like that. Legitimately, you need to be like, yes, we can see ourselves living in this house and making the payments of what this will cost. We want this. Yes. Otherwise, you should not be writing an offer. And if you are writing offer after offer after offer and not having success, something is wrong. Unfortunately, it's most likely probably the agent that's representing you. Potentially can also be maybe the lender involved in there as well too, causing some problems. But if you're truly following the guidance of your agent and you're not getting the offers accepted time after time after time, something's wrong. I'll just leave it at that, I guess, is what I'd say. But I have one client right now. I've written 3 offers for them, and we haven't gotten I'm so annoyed by it. It's incredible. And so sometimes that just happens. Sometimes an all cash offer just shows up, and it just is what it is. That just is reality. But that doesn't happen 6 times in a row.
Right.
Maybe once or twice or something. Sure. Okay. Just bad stuff is, I get sent an offer and I don't even know who the person is. They never called me. They never texted me. I don't know if they've even been in the house, to be honest with you. And so I'm like, well, I have this offer. I have to present it to my seller. I don't even know who the person is. You should be presenting yourself and talking about your client and why the seller is going to want to, move forward with you. So calling, so many agents are scared to actually use a phone for what its main purpose is, which is making a phone call. And so don't just hide behind the text message. You need to call, you need to dig in for further information. Sending an email and there's no attachments to it, or, we've all done it, but that's not so great. You need to actually attach the offer to it. Just writing in random things into the middle of the contract. Just putting buyer's going to pay for a home inspection. It's like, why did you put that there? They have every right to do a home inspection. You don't have to write that in. Now that you've written that in, the underwriter now needs to ask for it, and we're not going to be able to have a sale here because
let's talk all about
they want
inspections and
everything. Yeah. So understanding, okay, I write the offer this way, and then we go and do this way. This keeps it clean for everybody. Everything's on board. Everything's above water, and we're not hiding anything or manipulating anything. We're just doing it the proper process in order to make sure it can go smooth for the buyer, the seller, the agents, escrow, the lender involved, all those things, the insurance people that are involved, all that stuff. There's a proper process to go through it. And as an experienced agent, you know the right way to, move all those pieces around to make it to the end and, kind of have success there. Just agents not answering their phone or returning calls or returning text messages or anything like that. Or you call and then they just fire off a text with, 2 words or something. And it's like, you have an $800,000 listing. You can't spend 3 minutes on the phone to answer a couple of questions.
The worst is I've seen stuff where I got a buyer interested in a property that's been on the market for 47 days. And it takes 48 hours to respond from the list side. It's like, no wonder why you don't have this thing in contract.
Yeah.
It takes you 2 days to respond.
Yeah.
I want to tie a couple things together because I love all the stuff we're talking about, how to do it right, mistakes that are being made, and, the fact that the price isn't everything. I was I'm always trying to change details, so I'm not talking about a specific thing, but it is based on a true life story. Was part of an offer where the buyer didn't get their offer accepted. They were $30,000 higher than another offer. And to not name names, I'll just say they were working with an online company versus a traditional agent. And I didn't go do the research. I think the buyer was thinking about doing it, but I wanted to tell the buyer this online company was going to represent you on the buy side. They were going to give you kickback. But the sellers and that agent were so afraid to work with the unknown that you had to offer $30,000 more and still didn't get it accepted. So to save 8, you were willing to pay 30 more. And so I think buyers like get tripped up on this a lot, right? They want like a shortcut and they want to pay less, and you generally get what you pay for. As it figures into all of this, working with the right agent matters. We know that. That's what we've talked about. What about some of these online companies that no doubt, like with technology comes new companies. We've seen them come and go, quite honestly. You've been in for 18 years, so you've seen the purple bricks and the other ones that have come along. What are you seeing right now? And I guess, are you getting questions from clients about some of these different online platforms that might, not necessarily take the place of a buy-side agent, but might be something that is an alternative?
Yeah. I mean, ever since I started in this business, there's always been attempts at disruption to the industry and how things have gone. Whether it's, Purple Bricks or Zillow or Redfin or any of those. And we're talking billions of dollars being backed into these companies to try to disrupt the real estate industry, create a whole new model. It's going the way of the travel agent. You can just, sit on your couch and buy a house and not have to do anything. We'll just give you the loan and buy the house and it'll close. And, it appears like time after time after time when something new pops up and everyone's scared of it and all that, so many times those companies just can't get over the hump because the relationship side in real estate is so important, of just having someone that knows what they're doing and is experienced at it and can be a guide through the biggest financial transaction in anyone's lives. It just has value. It just does. And so, there's a small place in the market for those disruptors and the tech companies and everything to try to, hey, we'll buy your house as is and we'll close whenever you want and all that. There's a few people that are willing to do that and sell their house for $100,000 less than what it really is worth, just for the convenience of it. Sure. But I think at the end of the day, we talked about being a therapist and a counselor and the emotions that are involved, especially a first-time home buyer or just anyone. There comes a point in time in a real estate transaction where emotions happen, palms get sweaty, heart rate goes up. And if you just have some internet chat bot to talk to, you're not going to be feeling good about it. And it's not going to be worth the, couple $1,000 you think you're saving when you're really not, because you're going to be either overpaying or you're going to be just missing out. And you're not being guided through the process. You're not being coached on how to negotiate during inspections, how to work through this, what is reasonable, what isn't. So many times I've had my offers accepted for less than other offers that I knew were there. Or I've had a seller accept offers for less than their highest offer that they had because of the fact of the terms that were there. Whether it was the agent that wrote the offer is an experienced agent, or the lender that's involved with it, or the amount of down payment that there is, or the initial deposit, all those things, they matter. And so it's not just this online transaction where you just click a button and it's purchase and I'm done. It's so many layers and nuances that after all the attempts of the tech industry and Wall Street to come in and disrupt, they just haven't been able to get a foothold because of the personal aspect that just continues to be so crucial. When you're spending $900,000 on a house, enough people feel that it's important to have a relationship there with someone you can actually talk to face to face or over the phone or in person or whatever, to feel like they're being guided properly.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think it's a relationship business, and so many deals I see put together, and you know, like you said, I've got buyers that I talk with and counsel to a certain extent, and like they've got great professionals on both sides, and they're still, stressed out, and it can be a tough thing to go through. Without any of that, quite honestly, I've had buyers buy with a new build lender or something who's not that good, right? And I'm counseling them through the transaction and building rapport for future deals or referrals, not even doing the specific deal. So I agree with you wholeheartedly there. Last thing I want to touch on, and this horse has probably been beaten to death, but changes in the real estate industry, NAR settlement. I, for one, have said it publicly that I think it's a good thing that going forward, agents have to be transparent about their value and be able to express their value. Like, I provide a service, I'm valuable. Let's come together and let's sign an agreement that I'm going to be your agent. And this is the fee attached to that. What are your thoughts, I guess, on what's going to happen over the next couple of years, specifically buy side agents and anything that stems from this whole, settlement with NAR?
Yeah. There's a couple of different aspects. One is challenging as a real estate agent, how much misinformation is being thrown out there from sources you feel like you should be able to trust, news outlets. Unfortunately, President Biden said some pretty stupid stuff that was just completely inaccurate and not even correct about it. It's like, it's the president of the United States. You should be able to trust him saying two sentences about, some large thing that's going on in the country. And that was just inaccurate information, so it's challenging because
I got to know what he said. Sorry to interrupt you.
He said, for the first time, agents are going to be able to, you're going to be able to negotiate your commission with real estate agents
For the first time. That's always been the case.
And, some others spouted out some other stuff about saving buyers agents, up to $10,000 and this type of thing and stuff. Yeah. It was like some, intern wrote.
Right. Yeah. The teleprompter should have had better info on it for sure.
So that's the challenging part, is everyone's coming at this with all different information, and it's not accurate or correct. So ultimately, commissions have always been negotiable. So the weird thing about the settlement is it's acting as if this is something new. It's not something new. They've always been negotiable. Trust me, over 18 years, I've been always negotiating commission with the sellers, with my sellers. I think there are some nuances that are going to be good and some things that will be challenging as well too. So it's just making it more obvious, I guess, that commission's negotiable, even though it's in big, bold writing on several forms that you sign. I don't know how more obvious it can be, but apparently that's it. And then ultimately what's going to happen is commission was kind of this thing that went on behind the scenes. It was an agreement with the seller and their agent, and then that agent gave a portion of that commission to any agent representing a buyer. And that was on the MLS, and it just kind of happened behind the scenes. The buyer over here was feeling as if they were just getting kind of free representation. And it all sort of happened that way. Now what's happening is a buyer, if they want representation, they legally have to sign a buyer representation agreement with their agent. Buyers have always kind of been free agents. They could just call an agent up, go show something, whatever. If you're even going to go and look at a property with an agent, you now need to have an agreement in place. Sorry.
Are all brokerages doing that?
It's the law.
Oh, okay.
It's going to be the law. So you'll have to have an agreement in place. And that's why we were talking earlier that I believe buyers are going to start interviewing agents more now, because they have to agree to a commission that they will be paying their agent. And so there's probably going to be some agents that are desperate and they're going to be willing to take a way lower amount than what would be kind of normal in this industry. They're probably going to be getting what they're paying for there. But the scary thing for buyers is that they have to commit to a number with their agent. And a lot of buyers, this is what's the downside of the settlement, is a lot of buyers don't have the money to pay the commission to their agent. It's always come from the seller side, kind of through them purchasing the house. It came from the seller side. And so now there's a lot of buyers that are going, well, I barely have enough money for my down payment. I can't agree to pay you, 2.5% on top
Not knowing
of that.
what's going to be offered on the house.
Exactly.
The offer on.
So the problem is you have to commit to that. The good thing is that it can be offset by what's being offered by the seller on it. That no longer is going to be in the MLS. So agents now have a lot more work. Agents are going to have to get a hold of the listing agent, the agent representing the seller, and going, hey, what is your seller offering on the commission? And now, instead of it kind of being behind the scenes, it's actually going to be in the offer. It's going to be a term in the contract as to what the agent's going to be getting paid that is representing the buyer.
Yeah, this is a good convo. I just want to clarify for people, because I think this is important, and I like to make things so that a fifth grader can understand it, right? Traditionally, seller sits down with their agent and says, you're going to sell my house. I'm going to pay you 6% to do it. That agent's going to offer 3% to the buy side agent who represents the buyer. So buy side agent gets 3%, sell side agent gets 3%. They put the deal together. They get to the finish line. Happy seller, happy buyer. I know from experience and working on this side, sometimes that's 5.5, sometimes it's 5. Some negotiations have happened where, they can negotiate 7%. In my head, where it gets really tricky is buyer finds agent. This is the best agent in this zip code. I want to work at this agent, and I'm sign my agreement. You're going to represent me, and you're going to get 3%. Like you said, like we don't know what the sellers are going to offer. Some offer 3, some offer 2.5, some offer 2. In the cases where it's 2, now the buyers agreed to pay 3, they're going to be on the hook for 1%. Like, what are the conversations being had on the real estate side to kind of figure that part out?
Yeah, this is going to be everything's theory right now. So it's going to take a few months before everything gets kind of worked out and figured out. But ultimately, I think the downside with this whole thing is, I think attorneys were the biggest winner in this whole class action lawsuit thing. It's been angled as the buyer, wins. Everything's more transparent now and all that. Well, the buyer is not winning because they have to make a commitment up front. And so there might be some properties they've got to make an agreement with their agent. So what happens if there's a house and they're offering less than what we've agreed to? They've got to figure that out as to whether, okay, I'm not going to be able to look at those properties then. If I'm agreeing to paying you 2.5 and this person's only offering 2, I can't make up the difference, or they have to make up the difference, those types of things.
Yeah. Or there's going to be scenarios where it might be negotiated, like we'll pay you this price, half a percent in seller concessions. We know it's going to go to the buyer. It's going to have to pay that, spread between 2 and 2.5.
Yeah. So seller concessions is going to be, a factor. So it's going to become a term within the contract there. When all is said and done and the dust settles, I think everything's going to land similarly to how it's been for the last 10, 20, 30 years. And it's going to just be a couple of different steps done a few different ways, but it's going to take a while and no one truly knows the answer to how it's going to play out. But it's a little bit more transparent, I guess you can say, for the buyer. But they're kind of being on the hook a little bit more for this. It's now being put into the contract, which is a little frustrating from a real estate agent standpoint, is all of a sudden what I'm earning is now potentially becoming this like negotiated term of a transaction. I've already made an agreement with my buyer, and so I think there's going to be a lot of agents that two things. One, they're either going to be jumping out of the business because they just aren't able to have success with buyers in that way, or they don't have the track record to get someone to agree to sign an agreement with them. Or there's going to be some agents that are going to be just trying to hang on and survive, and they don't have the tools. And so they maybe will just go to a really cut rate, very small amount, and try to be living off of that. But
hang on for dear life.
Yeah, you'd be better off going somewhere else than trying to make, 0.5% every transaction or something. There's just not, you're doing way too much work for something like that. So yeah, MLS can't have commission available for the buyer's agent any longer. So there's going to need to be more communication between a buyer and a buyer's agent and a seller's agent, even before they go to show the house. So there's a little bit more work there. Buyer, you're not really a free agent any longer so much. You really got to select an agent and come up with an agreement with them. You've got to make a commitment to what that person's going to get paid up front. Most likely, my opinion is that most or all of that will end up getting covered by the seller.
Right.
But there's a lot of unknowns on every single property now.
Yeah.
That's the bulk of the gist of it. And it's basically the middle of August, it looks like, is going to be kind of the firm date of when all these changes are going to be happening. So I've already done a few buyer representation agreements with a few people just to kind of get the ball rolling with those. They came to me asking questions, and so I walked them through that, and we just got it in writing and took care of it. It's going to be an interesting second half of 2024 as all that stuff gets implemented.
Yeah.
I think the agents that are okay with understanding that things are just changing and you got to kind of adapt and go with the flow are going to end up in the best position. The ones that are just really uncomfortable with the change are going to have a hard time for sure.
Yeah. And that's why from my seat, I've said it before and I'll say it again. If you're a consumer and you're working with an agent second half of 24, first half of 2025 or beyond, you're working with an agent who has survived change, has survived, transaction volume going down, and is, on average going to be better than the agent that you would have found at a random open house in 2021. Because like the agents who aren't able to show their value, prove their value, be valuable, just won't be around. So I think it'll be a good thing in that it thins the herd a little bit. Because on my side, man, 1,000+ transactions. I've worked with some great agents and I've worked with some less than great agents. And so an agent who's got a business and structure and systems together, they're able to communicate to buyers, and get this agreement signed and go out there and do all these things. Like that's an agent that ultimately the buyer wants. Like that's who you want as a buyer, is an agent who's, doing this full time. This is their livelihood and they've done it enough times to be good at it. So I think we'll end there, man. That was really good stuff. It'll be interesting to see. I think the thing that's for sure, if anybody wants to know what's, going to happen in real estate going forward, is that change is a constant in real estate. Any parting words for the audience?
Yeah, I think just if this is geared mostly towards buyers on this, with you being on the mortgage side of things, I think it's really important to make sure you've got a good team around you, which is your real estate agent and your lender. And they're people that you trust, so that when they say, hey, it's going to be best to do this or to do that, as long as it's something, within reason and everything, and you're comfortable with it, you really need to be going forward with what their recommendation is, because they're doing this every day. You're doing this maybe once every 10 years or every 5 years. And the market's way different now than it was 5 years ago, and the way things work and the contract and all that stuff. I have clients I've done more than 10 transactions with, and they're still asking me totally newbie questions, which is fine. They don't do it every day. They do it a lot, but not every day.
Right.
And everything's changing all the time here. And so I think the key takeaway for buyers is to don't just rush into, your hairstylist also has her real estate license and she's a nice lady. And so, of course, we'll just work with her or something. She might be a great agent. You might, but I think don't just grab onto the first person that has a real estate license. I mean, the barrier to entry to get your real estate license is so low. I mean, you basically fog a mirror and you've got your real estate license. It's disappointing and it's sad. And I wish the bar would be raised to get into real estate. But as of right now, it's a pretty low bar. And so a lot of people can have their real estate license and not really know how to truly guide a buyer through the process. So pick the right team. If you've got the right team, you're going to have success in this massive purchase that you're about to embark on. And so pick the right team, trust them, go with their guidance, and you should have success at the end.
I love it, man. Yeah, I've said it. There's two issues that can be happening if you're not seeing success in real estate. One, you're getting bad advice, or two, you're getting the right advice and you're not following it. So
Yeah, for sure.
Find someone who you trust their advice and follow it. That's a great way to end it. Thanks, Doug. I appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.